Welcome to the Practice Podcast, a show created by lawyers to help lawyers in life and business without all the complicated lawyer language. Let's welcome Bast Amron founders and your hosts, Jeff Bast and Brett Amron.
Good morning, Brett. Good morning. How are you?
I'm tired,
but I'm
have
good.
You back.
Thank you. Tired from travel to the West Coast.
The West Coast.
Mediation.
Yeah, mediation. And last week we were out in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So it's been
on the road.
It's been a busy couple weeks of travel, and travel takes a toll as you age.
Is there somewhere that you love to travel? Is there like a favorite place to travel to?
Oh,
like
there's
you
so
get excited
many.
when you're at the airport. You're like, oh, I can't wait to get to this place.
Anywhere that's got a mountain on it.
Any place with a mountain. All right.
You know.
I feel like that's a good one.
Yeah. How about you?
I guess I love the mountains too, but I'm going to go with any place with a body of water. Then I'm going to get to jump in.
Okay.
There's a lot of bodies of water that maybe you're not going to jump in.
All right. Is that your question for me today?
No, it really wasn't.
Oh,
but
wow.
I guess we could keep it. We'll leave it at that. So that
You don't want to ask me the other question. We want to keep our.
All right. The other question was if you were given $1 million.
But I was quick. You just turned quickly. You just made the decision, and I got you to change.
We're on
course.
air. I mean, people are listening. They're they want action.
Pulling over right now or crashing their car. Go ahead.
If you were given $1 million that you had to spend in 6 months.
Is this Brewster's Millions? Is that what we're doing?
No, I'm just.
Okay.
Because
$1
million, that was a long time ago. $1 million was, I'm not saying millions, not a lot of money, but it's not
what it used to be.
It's not what it used to
be. But it is still a lot of money.
You had to spend it, and you can't just donate it, because obviously that would be the first thing.
Okay. Can I have anything left over after I spend it? Like, are we Brewster's Millions?
Use it or lose it.
No. Meaning, can I have an asset?
Oh,
or
yeah,
is this
of course.
like I just have to blow it?
Yeah, you could buy something. You got to,
that I have left over?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you have? Anything? That's a tough one, right?
Yeah, it is a tough one.
It's really, we're not committing you to this. It's more like a first thing that comes to your mind type thing.
I'd probably set up a lot of trips.
Yeah.
Make sure, obviously, as this assumes that my kids are cared for,
right,
my family, like all that. This is like, can I spend this on sort of extra
quickly?
And I'd probably plan a bunch of trips. And if I could, and the dollars worked out, maybe I'd buy a farm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of the farm, but I love that idea. I'm in on that.
I'm looking for a farm with like a barn so I can have a lot of dogs. I don't need chickens and all that stuff.
Right.
But I want a lot of dogs.
A dog farm.
A dog farm.
Puppy farm.
Where older dogs can go and they can just retire.
Michael, you want to join in?
Our guest is sitting here going, what did I agree to do?
I thought this was a legal podcast.
This is a legal podcast, and these two guys are sitting here talking about dog farm.
I like the trip thing. I was thinking of the idea of like renting a really big, like a mega yacht and planning a trip with friends and family, like a really cool, fun trip.
When are we going?
I'm not buying the yacht. I'm included. I'm planning a trip. Yeah, you're included. Okay. Michael, you can.
I'd invite you to the farm.
Somebody has to work when he's on his mega yacht.
No.
But I like the farm better.
Mega yacht. I don't peg you as a mega yacht.
I'm not buying it. I'm planning a trip, but it's a boat trip, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
A water-bound.
No
trip.
Pontoons. Would you have a pontoon on the?
It would have
boat?
to be. We'd have to make it an electric.
A lot of toys, though.
Oh yeah.
Oh, electric mega yacht. Okay.
All right.
Lots of those around.
Okay. Let's
get to our guest. Talking about mega. We're going to get to our guest today because we have a very special guest today, Michael Krawitz. Michael's responsible for overseeing Conduent's global, legal, and enterprise risk functions, where he manages corporate governance, risk, ethics, privacy, contracting, government affairs, and all legal initiatives. A seasoned legal executive, Michael has more than 20 years of experience serving large-scale multinational companies. He has extensive knowledge in all areas of legal management, including M&A, that's mergers and acquisitions, Jeff, just so
Thank you for
corporate governance and compliance matters relating to boards of directors, securities offerings, financings, and other negotiated transactions, and management of in-house legal functions. Michael joined Conduent from York Risk Services, where he served as general counsel and corporate secretary. During his tenure at York, Michael oversaw the organization's legal affairs and drove operational agility. Boy, I like that. Operational agility. Responsiveness and process improvements across the department. He also worked extensively with York's board and private equity owners. Prior to York, he served as general counsel for companies across several industry sectors, including finance and technology. He also served on the board for Positive ID Corporation, a leading biological detection and diagnostic solutions firm serving the defense and healthcare markets. Michael earned his BA, are you ready for this, Jeff? His BA in economics and in government from Cornell University, and a JD from Harvard Law School. He also holds a certification in cybersecurity oversight management conferred by Carnegie Mellon University. Welcome, Michael Krawitz.
Thanks.
Did we cover
everything?
Is everything,
I think it was exaggerated.
Okay. Well, exaggerated or using proper phraseology that makes it just sound better.
Yeah.
I think it's your tone of voice, actually.
Well, listen.
Yeah, he's a great intro.
I've been working.
Do all the intros.
I've been working on it.
Yeah.
At home at night.
Yeah, he works
I sit there in the mirror and
So, Michael, all right. So, where are you from originally?
New Jersey. I was born in New Jersey.
You're born in New Jersey. Are you someone you always wanted to be a lawyer? You have lawyers in your family?
No, I didn't have lawyers in my family. I joke that my parents gave me two choices and I didn't like blood, so it wasn't a doctor. But no, I think I didn't have a burning desire in high school or college. It was just a natural path.
Like studying economics and government.
Yeah.
And
then,
when you went to law school, did you have a sense of what you wanted to do?
No, I think when I went to law school, looking back with hindsight, I didn't even really appreciate what a lawyer does. You see
I'm still
TV.
not sure.
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, podcast, exactly.
Right, exactly.
You see lawyers on TV that litigate, which is closer a little bit to what you guys do, but it's really far from what I do.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
And I really didn't understand even first year. And then first summer was at a litigation-focused firm, so I didn't even understand first summer. And then second summer, I started to say, oh, this is different.
Meaning there's a corporate world?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was working. My second summer was at Fried Frank, so it was a firm that obviously has litigation, but it also has corporate practice. And that's when I saw, more the contract side and the deal side and the transaction side, things like that.
So if you had to describe what a lawyer is and what a lawyer does now, today, after practicing for so long and being in-house, what would you say that is?
Wow.
Overall, like it doesn't, not necessarily a litigator versus a transactional versus an in-house or private practice or government practice, but is there something words you can use to describe if someone said, well, what does a lawyer do?
At 50,000 feet, I think a lawyer is a master of the system.
Whoa,
okay.
I like it.
Okay.
Okay. And
a facilitator.
Helps people navigate the system.
Yeah. Okay.
Whether the system is a dispute or whether the system is an agreement or whether the system is a will. That's ultimately what I think our profession should be.
Should be, right. But in reality, it's a profession where your job is to protect your clients from other members of your profession.
Right. Sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes. Yeah. But I think that's right. I think a lawyer acts as a facilitator in like you said, navigating the system, whatever that system may be, of society and the laws governing society.
Yeah.
Right. And the norms that we hear a lot about too in society and helping sort of navigate through that.
And also, I think, at least on the corporate side, best practices.
Yep.
On the compliance side, best practices. I think some of our best counsel, including Bast and Ron, helps us when we call to say, okay, what are other companies doing? What are other people doing? What's the best here? Because you're just up to speed on what a lot of other places are doing and also reading and becoming experts. So I think that's a big part of it too.
So going back to your story, after law school, did you end up practicing at a law firm? You did the law firm thing?
Yes.
For some period
So I went
of time?
to Fried Frank after.
Okay.
And I was there for 5 years.
And then you moved to
then
that's when you went to York?
No.
Or where'd you?
I went to, the company's gone now, it was sold. It was a tech company.
Right.
And it was quickly growing, but smaller.
Is this the late 90s or when?
It was it was the 1999. Yeah, 1999 I went in-house. That was my first general counsel. I was the only lawyer job. And so it was a much smaller place. And it taught me a lot.
And what was the...
huge change.
Oh yeah, please tell us what did it teach you?
For one thing, I don't know if this is what it taught me, but a huge change. In those days, we were using obviously computers and email and stuff like that, but our clients really weren't using email in 1999 the way we do now. So the end of my workday when I left New York was the FedEx cutoff, because you got the dock in FedEx and that was it. And the FedEx cutoff was if you ran to the FedEx place 11:30 at night. That was,
you knew there was one that was open.
You knew it was open till 11:30.
Right.
So you run to 11:30, you go back to the office, clean up, go home around midnight. When I got to Florida, when I got to my first in-house job, the FedEx cutoff was 4:30.
Yeah.
What do I do with the rest of my day?
That's open till 6:30.
Well, it is Florida, yeah.
So it was a big, big change. Yeah. But I learned to, quickly email came and the day extended, and that was a short-lived window where I got to experience.
Like people don't have to deal with that anymore, and I don't think the younger, and we're going to date all of ourselves, but the younger lawyers don't realize that there was that cutoff. And now it's just hitting a button and sending it, whether it's filing with a court electronically or sending it. It's still, listen, there's a lot to be done and to file it correctly, but there's not that getting it to the physical location, knowing what locations were open until which time.
And how far it was.
I was an associate, and we had an appellate brief that was due, and the partner just was taking forever and wanted, dot the I's and cross the T's, and every minute. And finally, we got it done. We wrapped it up in the box, and I ran to the FedEx here in downtown, and I got there, and I thought I had 3 minutes. 3 minutes until they closed. I get to the door and it's locked. And I'm freaking out. And I'm like, well, I'm going to have to get on an airplane. I think we were filing in Tallahassee. Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to have to get on an airplane and go file this thing tomorrow. And so I see a couple of people in there and I just start banging on the door. And they're looking at me, and the woman goes like this, to her watch. Yeah. And I said I showed her my watch, and I said, look, I have 3 minutes, 3 minutes.
Even that, by the way.
Yeah.
We didn't all have a uniform
phone
time.
Right.
We weren't using the same
correct
time system.
You're right.
Right. So her clock could have been wrong, and you have a watch.
And I did not. Right. And I have an Apple Watch.
At the same time.
So she gave me a reprieve. She came to open the door because my watch was 3 minutes slower, or whether my time was right or her time was right, I don't know.
You would not get away with
that. No, not today. No. And she opened the door, and I got it in. So that was, by the way, that's a skill. Like that's a skill I had to learn.
Yeah.
Right? Is to negotiate that time and to get that done and to advocate, if you will, in that instance, as opposed to today. Like they don't have to do that.
I love that story because you're at the door and immediately you're like, all right, I'm flying to Tallahassee.
Right.
Like you're already problem solving. Yeah. You're not like, oh, we're done. I have to get, we're not going to make it. It's over.
Yeah, we missed the deadline. Right.
You are still finding a way to get this.
The resilience is something we talk about all the time at work. We talk about resilience all the time.
It's really, it's so important, isn't it?
It's a really important skill.
Yeah.
It's not over until we decide it is.
Yeah.
All right. So why did you make this change, by the way? You're working at Fried Frank. Your life is good. You're a good firm. Yeah. And all of a sudden you're going to go to a small company that has no lawyers in-house. Like, why in the world would you make that change?
I think I was a little impatient in my youth, and I was drawn in by the excitement. It was, this was the pre-dot-com bust. It was, just before.
Sure.
So there was a lot of excitement around tech and going in-house, and I thought, here's an opportunity, and general counsel in my late 20s, that was sort of appealing.
Right.
And so I did.
Were you worried about leaving, like, the law firm track and 5 years invested?
Yeah. Well, I didn't. First of all, I viewed the 5 years as a great education. So it was invested and I got, long payout besides. It wasn't just to become a partner, right? It was a huge, huge education. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was worried, of course.
Had you worked with in-house counsel while you were at Fried Frank?
Quite a bit.
Okay. So when you left and got to your office the first day as in-house counsel in your 20s, you didn't sit down and go, all right, now what? I mean, you had a little bit of an idea, but still, I would imagine that first day.
Well, yeah. I mean, the company was highly acquisitive, and I was doing M&A work before, so it was a pretty natural.
Okay.
It was a pretty natural.
But there's still a transition, right?
And you're transition and cultural transition, going from a place where you're in a big class or a small class, depending on the size of your firm, but a class with people your own age who all went to school with you or similar schools, similar backgrounds.
Right.
All of a sudden interacting with all kinds of people. And that was a phenomenal, different kind of learning experience.
So at Fried Frank, you're one of, and at the company, you are the one lawyer.
The lawyer, for sure.
And maybe there's other lawyers, but you're the top. If you're general counsel, you're the one that everyone's going to go to and say, can we do this?
Can we do this?
Tell me we could do this, right? And you have to counsel and advise.
Yeah.
And everyone's looking to you. You're the one. How did that how did that feel when you got there?
Well, I don't think I thought of it in those terms, Brett, because when you have a project, when you're working on a project in a law firm, you're also the one. It's not, yes, you have other people to consult with, but when you're in-house, you do as well. You bounce ideas. I certainly talk to my team now quite a bit about lots of things.
Team of lawyers, your legal department?
Or your legal department, or my fellow executives. We talk about lots of things, including legal things. It's just hopefully I'm able to translate the complex legal topics into a way that I can have a meaningful conversation and get meaningful input on with my fellow executives.
That's great. So you've been in-house now at three companies?
Yeah, 3 companies with a stint in between that was kind of a hybrid role.
So are they all the same?
No. I mean, I started off at a very small place that was growing really rapidly. And I was, in the beginning, the only lawyer. And then even at the end, there were, I think, 4 of us. And now it's a much more established company. It's much larger. And it's totally different. It's a different job.
So I think
it's effectively a different job.
I'm asking because I think a lot of young lawyers, young lawyers. I think a lot of lawyers who work in law firms don't really have a good sense of what an in-house job is like, and they just think of it as the one, lawyer that they deal with. And so here you've had the benefit of multiple different in-house experiences, and so can you elaborate a little bit about?
Sure. Well, I think
how they may vary.
Well, at a firm with a larger department, so I have 150 people now in the legal department. Most of them are not lawyers. Only about 50 are lawyers.
Right.
The rest are contracts managers, risk professionals, government affairs, compliance professionals, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some that will give me a hard time tomorrow.
You're assuming they listen to this podcast, but yes.
He's going to blast it up.
Yeah, that's right.
Mandatory.
You should mandate it.
It's going to be in the education section of the website.
Hey, we just picked up 50 listeners.
That's right.
So it's very different experience. I really enjoy, just on a personal level, the development of the team. Seeing somebody, just kind of grow or achieve what they want to achieve out of their professional life. And that varies. Some people want to be a subject matter expert really deep. Some people want breadth. General counsel sort of necessarily is breadth. It's not depth.
Sure.
So different people want different things. And I just really love helping them to make it happen.
You're effectively running you're running a 150 person law firm within a company.
Within a company, yeah.
Because there's 50 lawyers, but then you have everyone else and support.
It's really funny you should say that because at my last place at York, when I joined and I met with the team, which was a smaller team, that was a smaller group, but it was a decent sized group. And I had heard some complaints from our internal clients that the responsiveness of the legal department was holding back sales. It's a common theme you'll hear from sales teams. If the lawyers would just get out of our way, we could be blowing up sales.
Right.
And so I started probing, how work came in and how it was turned around. And they were using their inbox as their to-do list, which is something that drives me nuts.
Yeah.
And I said, well, how many emails are in your inbox? And it was hundreds. And one person said 1,000. If you were in a law firm and your clients relied on you for work, would you let 1,000 emails in your inbox and not respond? And they said, but we're not in a law firm. And that attitude does not work in-house.
No.
That was my number one job at that moment.
It's almost worse.
Was to say, no, you do have internal clients. This is a law firm.
Yeah.
And that shift to the mindset of internal clients was really critical to delivering.
Interesting.
And that simple shift, which was hard to execute, but it made the hugest difference.
Yeah.
It really did. So I love your analogy of saying it's like running a law firm because that's how I like to think we're doing it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you have
It's different.
Yeah.
We can't go into court, but we have departments and we have teams and And we have definitely internal clients that we have to serve well.
I think both of us are sitting here. I don't know if you saw the smiles on our face when you mentioned using your inbox as a to-do list and stuff like that. We preach that here.
Yeah. Oh, really?
All the time, and getting to emails and making sure that you're responding and not using your inbox as that to-do list. We have task lists. We have all kinds of things that people can use electronically. And we always talk about that, especially the younger lawyers, and teaching them. But man, there was a lawyer that was here once that had, I think when we went through this, there were like thousands of emails in his inbox.
Oh, I was on a meeting recently and I saw somebody, not anyone here.
Yeah.
They were doing a screen share.
Oh, no.
You saw the number?
Oh, the screen share.
Yeah. 75,000.
Oh, no.
On their inbox. And I was like, what? They don't delete. They don't do. I was like, are you insane? Whoa. 75,000? Like, do you have an IT department? Like, your IT people must be going crazy. I was shocked. I was like, I had to say something. I said something like in the middle of a meeting. I was like, wait a minute. I just want to say one thing. And we're talking about one thing. And I'm like, is that 75,000? Are we looking at that number?
Yeah. No, but that's interesting that you say that, because I'm sure it changes depending upon the size of the department, depending upon the company itself and the stage of the company. But in reality, it is an in-house firm with a captured client, right? Or it's the other way around, that the captured client has a captured law firm at its disposal.
Dedicated firm.
Yeah, I think I would encourage my team to think of, obviously in a legal sense, the company is the client, right? But we don't think in company, we think in people. And at least Conduent is very, very relationship-driven place. We care a lot about building good relationships internally and externally. So I encourage them to think of the people with whom they work as their internal clients, even though legally
it's the company.
It's the company.
Right.
And that mindset, it's funny. One of the biggest lessons I've learned going in-house is companies do things with culture that I think are really interesting, like or employee surveys and things like that. And we did this culture survey at a prior company, and they said, do you want your company to be more transactional or more relationship driven? The executives had to decide. On one end of the spectrum was transactional, the other end was relationship driven. And the executives, including myself, said, well, internally, we want to be more transactional. We want everybody who asks for work to get the same quality of work. You submit a request for an NDA, you're going to get it the same in 2 hours, whether you know the lawyer or you don't know the lawyer. But externally with our clients, we want to have great relationships. We want them to be like family. And the culture expert said, you can't do that. Right. Yeah. You have to have the same internal culture as external culture. Yeah. You cannot fake it. You can't have one culture for your people and then expect those people to have a different culture for your clients. And that I think Conduent does really well. And I've leaned into this idea that it's not that I want the relationship. I want them to build close relationships. They have to obviously exercise some degree of protection of the company that they have, but they're good. You hire good people. They know that part. It's really embracing that culture of relationship, because then if you have that culture, we could deliver that to our external clients.
Yeah, it just makes it seamless, right? If you have that internal culture, right? And that's something that we preach here and we try to do as well, which is making sure that the people here are, as happy as they can be, right? It's work. But as happy as they can be, because that translates. And, the care factor, like you guys say, is the same thing, right? And we talk about that here a lot, which is, if you care, everything else kind of falls into place, right? Because you're going to take the extra step.
So my original concern about making sure that everybody gets a certain work product in a certain amount of time, regardless of whether or not they have a personal connection, that's something you can teach.
Sure.
And sometimes, if you have to, require. Say this is a service level expectation. But the culture, it's more important to have is the relationship, not the truth.
So how then, let's talk about how then, well, let's take a step back, which is culture in a law firm. Is it different from your perspective than building a culture in a business or an in-house firm?
In some ways it is, for sure. Well, for one thing, there are aspects of making a law firm function that are different. Most law firms, unfortunately, have to keep track of hours. And that is just critical to the operation. It falls apart. So maintaining that level of rigor around accurate timekeeping is something that doesn't happen in-house, which allows for different kind of working. And I think that that's maybe the biggest difference. It's still client-driven. It's mission-driven. It's sometimes project-driven with a mission. And I think that those are similarities, but that aspect of having the law firm function based on time drives a portion of the culture that is different. So I'm sure I've got, and we also have a lot more people working from home than probably would work at a law firm. Because if you think about a law firm, you're hiring people most often very early in their career, perhaps straight out of college, straight out of law school. And so development is important at all. It's important for me, but development for someone who's fresh out of law school requires sitting next to somebody and showing. Whereas at a company where you're hiring people often with a lot of experience, it's a different kind of development. And so they could work from home more. That changes the culture. And it's just, hopefully people appreciate that when they're coming into the office of the law firm, that it's for their own development,
Yeah. Preach. I mean, if you have a culture of collaboration, I mean, that's certainly the best way to further that is having people working together and collaborating. It's just harder. The more friction you have in any relationship, the more difficult it is. Geographies, friction, and methods of communication adds friction. So
it's a friction and a strength. When you say about geography, I mean, I'm lucky enough to have people in 5 continents. And so very different perspectives on issues. We just announced a transaction. We're selling a division. And in that, the division had some people in the Philippines, some people in India, some people in Guatemala. So we're working with Counsel from around the world and just learning the differences in some things that we would consider fairly basic. It really does add. First of all, I find it interesting. Just
to learn.
Fundamentally, it's interesting. And second, I do think it makes us better to experience some of that friction. Yes, in the moment, you want to pull your hair out. Like, what do you mean you can't just transfer the computers with the sale? We're selling the business. Why can't you transfer? Well, because you bought the computers with a tax advantage thing in a special zone and all these things that you learn. But it makes you appreciate different perspectives and different ways of doing things.
So
I agree with you about the friction, but sometimes friction,
it's the diversity, right? People's backgrounds and where they came from. And it's not just, and it's not just the laws of the specific area where they're from, but how
they think about it.
Yeah. And that's super helpful too, I'm sure, when you're dealing with stuff like that. So you touched on it a little bit in terms of development. Do you see the development any different in-house versus at a law firm?
For sure. Like I said, you're starting with many people in a law firm coming straight out of law school. So they have to learn, how. When I think in a company, it's the first step in the development is understanding what the person wants or can see as a path. And so that's different from a law firm where, yes, you want the person engaged for sure in understanding where they want to grow, if they want deep subject matter expertise in bankruptcy or if they want to be a general litigator or whatever. But there's a law firm mission that it has to be within those guardrails. I think for a company, it could be a little bit broader and it could be a lot more, I call it consumer driven, but it can be a lot more driven by the actual person being developed and what they want. Some people in their stage of life, they don't want development. They just don't. They want to do their work. They want to do their work and go home. And at a company, there's room for people like that. Right. There absolutely is. Yeah. And it could be a stage of life too. That right now I've got X going on at home. Right. It could be a difficult thing, a sick parent or something like that. It could be a great thing, a newborn. Right. But their focus in that moment could be very different than their focus 5 years later. Right. So the first step in a company is like, okay, what does that person want? Really understanding and getting some honesty and helping them find their honesty.
I would say that today, I would say that there might be some of that in law firms too.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's true. My experience with law firms is stale.
Yeah.
It's really stale.
I mean, because I do think that there's some of that.
Yeah.
Depending on the generation and where people are in the firm, but I do think there is some of that. I don't think there used to be any of that in law firm, but I think there is some of that today. Yeah. So I have one more question to end on because I think it'd be super helpful for some of our listeners, which is you work with a lot of outside counsel.
Yeah.
What are some of top 3 or 5 do's and top 3 or 5 don'ts?
Right, so
I'm going to put you on the spot.
He only gave you 1 minute, so that's, no, I'm kidding.
No.
It's funny. We spent a lot of time working on our outside counsel guidelines.
Uh-huh.
And our outside counsel guidelines has a list of things, not just that we expect of our outside counsel, but things that our outside counsel should expect of us. And the number one thing on both lists was to act ethically. It is absolutely the number one thing.
Yeah.
Our reputation is critical. Your reputation is critical. And even if that's the only reason you have for acting ethically, which I hope it's not, right? That alone is enough to say that deserves to be number one on the list. Right.
It shouldn't even need to be on the list, right? I mean, it should just be.
It shouldn't. But in the scope of advocacy and pressures with dollars and things like that,
you just want.
There's a decision tree, right?
I want it right up there, up front. That's what I expect of our outside counsel, and that's what they should expect of us.
Yep.
Which means if they ask us a question, we're going to give an honest answer, and
even if it's not the one they want,
if it's not the one they want, because
that's okay. Then deal with it, right? Then address it.
They'll deal with it.
Exactly.
So that's on one extreme. That's really high level, right? Very, very philosophical. On the total opposite extreme, since you asked, it drives me bonkers when law firms don't bill monthly. So we also require our law firms to bill monthly. And I remember the first time I said...
Meaning they're billing less often?
Less often,
assume. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And the first time I said, you haven't sent a bill in 3 months. And then all of a sudden you give me a bill for 3 months and I've got a budget and I've got to manage this. And they said, we thought we were doing you a favor by saving you cash flow. And it's true. I mean, we didn't pay the bill. We didn't,
now I have a bigger bill.
They gave us an interest-free loan for 3 months, which is in that narrow sense true. But the pressures on in-house counsel to manage to a budget are high, so it's really, really important to bill monthly.
Yeah,
and our systems are generally set up on a calendar month.
Yeah.
So bill for a calendar month. Little things like that. So two wildly different examples of things that are important to me.
Right.
Yeah.
One very, very high level, one very, very picky.
Yeah. Yeah, but even I wonder the idea that, we were doing that to save you money. Is that why you were doing that?
Oh, yeah. It could have been just
saving money.
Or is there one bottleneck in that firm or in that department that's just hasn't reviewed their bills or hasn't put their time in or whatever?
All right.
Anyway. Could be.
That's good.
So a couple of little things, a couple of things that come to mind.
Oh, no, I think those are both important. I mean, just the idea that you have to add the ethics to the list. My assumption is that at some point you encountered someone who did not adhere to that type of thinking. And so you were like, okay, I want to make sure that no matter what decision is made, it's always guided by ethics.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Good stuff.
Thank
you for sharing. Why don't you close this out today, bro?
No.
You like that?
No.
Well, I enjoyed this. So
I did too. I did very much.
I enjoyed it. If you enjoyed this show, show us some love. Give us a 5-star review. Share the show with your friends and family. Send it out right now by text to one of your friends. Send this episode to one of your friends. And you'll be doing them a favor and us a favor.
They'll thank you later.
They will. I'm sure they will. And send it to Michael's legal department. Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Nelson. As always, thank you, buddy.
Thank you all. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jeff.
Very interesting.
Thanks, bro.
Thanks.
For more information on this show and other resources, visit fastamron.com and connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram @FastAmron.